Today I am bringing you the latest installment of my Country Cemetery Tour series. Again, I found a lot of history in this particular cemetery, and this was actually a suggestion of one of my viewers after one of my last videos in the series, so thank you for that. Another historic figure, a couple ties to our country's history. The grandfather of Abraham Lincoln is actually buried in this cemetery, so we're going to take a look at that. On a personal note, we have just hit 8,500 subscribers. I can't thank you enough for that. I really appreciate you watching and joining my journeys with me. Yeah, this particular cemetery is just outside of Louisville, Kentucky, so we're going to take a look at that. Please stick with me until the end of the video. I have a very fun announcement to make, something that I'm going to be bringing to you that's been requested. But as of right now, let's go to just outside of Louisville, Kentucky for my latest country cemetery. Okay, as you can see by the sign, this is Long Run Cemetery, and on these grounds, you have the Long Run Cemetery, and this was actually known at one time as Long Run Baptist Church and Cemetery. The church is long gone. We are going to look at some of the history of that, but you can see back behind that tree, that's where the cemetery is. We're going to be making our way up there in just a moment. Also, you will look here on the way, there is this brick standing, this structure here with a historic plaque that tells a little bit about the grounds. It says right there, you stand on historic grounds. I'm just going to be honest with you, as far as my channel goes, this is the oldest cemetery that I have ever visited. And what I mean by that is most of the time when you find an old cemetery or visit an old cemetery in Kentucky, you're looking at the 1800s. I actually was able to find there were several people buried here that were a part of the American Revolution, and you're dating back, you've got some time there. So I'm going to be showing you some of that, and really a lot of the unique stones in here, along with a few other little tidbits that I think you will enjoy. So we're going to take a look at that. Now you can see here there is a gate, a little fence on the outside of the cemetery. We're going to be making our way into that in just a moment. But yeah, you can definitely look and see the age here of what we're seeing. Now, as you first go into the gate on the right, I thought this was neat. This was actually grown from an acorn of a tree in which Abraham Lincoln gave a speech. So, again, one of my last country cemetery tours had some ties to Abraham Lincoln, and so does this one. So we're going to be looking at that. But yeah, it says this is a acorn grown from a tree in which he delivered a campaign speech. Now, if you look right here, you will see this appears to be a foundation of sort. Now, there's two parts of history associated with this particular place that we're looking at right now. This is actually the remains of Long Run Baptist Church, a very early church that was organized in this area, and it amazes me that there are some remains even left from this. But there are, and I do take several looks at that. And I just find it neat. In the United States, we don't have a history here as long as a lot of the other countries do in the East. So we really don't have ancient ruins here. But as far as the United States goes, and as far as Kentucky goes, this is about as close to ancient ruins as you're going to find here. But this whole area was placed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1975. So yeah, the history is just amazing here. And we're going to be taking a look at a few other things, but I do want to show you some more of the foundation. Now, something very interesting associated with this land was once owned by Abraham Lincoln's grandfather. And the ruins that you're seeing, the foundation, actually was the site of where Abraham Lincoln's grandfather's cabin was. So not only do you have the history of it being the Long Run Baptist Church, you've also got the history of that's actually where Abraham Lincoln's grandfather lived. So very neat. A couple of pieces of history there that, you just don't find that in every cemetery you go to, for sure. So I'm taking a look at some of these stones right now, and you'll see Really some of the names are hard to read. I try to get in there and zoom in on some of those. But you can see just very standard stones here. We're going to just take a look at some of these, and I'm going to zoom in and we'll see what we can see here. There were a few different last names that kept coming up on the visit. So I don't know if this was a family cemetery at some time. I don't really think so, because everything seems to be tied back to the church. So I'm sure they were just members of the church. But here is one of the things I really wanted to show you. Abraham Lincoln, which, modern day Abraham Lincoln, the burial site of Abraham Lincoln's grandfather. And you can see there, he does have the American Revolution plaque on the left. So, and here's something that is another piece of history associated with this particular ground. There was a skirmish between Abraham Lincoln's grandfather and Native Americans on this particular site. And this is where Abraham Lincoln's grandfather lost his life. He lost his life in that skirmish, and it is said that Abraham Lincoln's father actually witnessed this. But we're taking another look at the stone that says Abraham Lincoln, of course, parentheses, Lincoln, May 1738 to May 1786, paternal grandfather of Abraham Lincoln. And Richard Chenoweth, I just wanted to take a look at this as well. He was a captain in the Revolutionary War, so in the American Revolution. And like I said, there were a few different few different graves of people in the American Revolution in this particular cemetery, which is amazing because you just don't see that too often, especially in one place. Lincoln's grandfather is buried just outside of the foundation of the old church, which would have been his cabin. I videoed this. If you look, there is, around the perimeter of this small plot, there's 3 or 4, maybe 5 different stones in here, and of course you can see right there some of those have been broken. But inside the perimeter of this, there were a few different graves, but we thought it was neat that you'll see the last name Sturgeon, and I've seen this a lot. Simpson Sturgeon, 1773 through 1822. There's a lot of Sturgeons, a lot of last names of Sturgeons in this cemetery. So I don't know if they're just big members, big part of the church, or what. But I did notice this one. This says John, son of. And I don't know, that little, you got the stone there, you got that concrete surrounding it. That almost looks like it was added later. I wouldn't know why unless we just tried to sturdy. But it was just on the outside of the perimeter of the cemetery. I wanted to look at this one too. You'll see, yeah, you can see the age starting to take control of that one. And again, I want to look here. If you see the stone there, the one we're looking at, looks like just a standard stone, but there's that concrete block poured around it. And maybe it is original, I don't know, but if you've seen anything like that, let me know in the comments. I'm not saying I've never seen it, but I've just seen so many in this one particular cemetery. It makes me think that it may have been added later to try to add some sturdiness. I don't know. I wanted to pay tribute here as well. Ednam Gregg. He was actually enslaved at one time and was a member of the Long Run Church. You can just see some information about his life on the plaque. And there were a few of these. I thought this was a great touch. There were a few of these plaques that were throughout this cemetery. We'll take a look at a few of those. I wanted to pay honor to this gentleman and take a look at his stone as well. But as we go through this, I do want to take special note of those plaques, and those were great to have. And I'll show you those as we go along. But Ednam Gregg, I just want to give some honor to Ednam Gregg today. And then kind of in behind his grave, you'll see another collection of gravestones here. And you can tell that some of these were actually organized as families because the same last name kept popping up. If you look on the forefront there, I'm getting closer to it. The stone closest to the screen right now did have a little lamb on top of it. We've made reference to the country cemetery tours before. Most of the time, that represents a grave of someone that passed at a young age. Can't really get a name on that, but I did want to go ahead and zoom in on that because just about every country cemetery tour that I've done has had that in there, a gravestone with a lamb on it. So we're just kind of looking at some of the general scenes. There's some more of the Sturgeon last name. While we're taking a look at the stones, I do want to ask everyone, please leave me a comment below. Let me know what you think about videos like this. So far I've got a great response. It seems like that is what a lot of you want to see. And you know, there are unique cemeteries around here, and this one's about 2.5 hours from where I actually live, just outside of Louisville, Kentucky. I believe that the community here is called Eastwood, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, but I believe that's what it was. Also, if you stick with me to the end of the video, I do have a fun announcement coming up about some things associated with my channel, some requests that I've got in the past. So that's going to be at the end of the video. We really appreciate that. This is looking back towards the front of the cemetery here. So I'm now in the back, looking back towards the front. And you can see that's just a unique arrangement of the stones here. And there was most of the time when you go to, especially newer cemeteries, the stones all face one direction. And that's definitely not the case here. They were in here all different ways. So you can see here, when trying to zoom in on some of the names. But yeah, the age is evident. I mean, you can see some of the age. There was Father A.J. Sturgeon, 1841 to 1907. As far as age of the graves, you're not going to see too many newer than that, honestly. There may be a few in here, but for the most part, I mean, you'll see burials 1700s and like Lincoln's grandfather, that goes back, or the 1800s rather. Lincoln's grandfather goes back to the 1700s, and that's just stuff you don't really see too often here, just given the age of Kentucky itself. You'll see several within the the 1800s, but 1700s you just don't see that too often here. I know further in eastern part of the U.S., the more established places, the colonies and things like that, I mean, it's more commonplace there, but not so much here. See the last name Bryant. I did see several Bryants in here also. But you'll see 1932, and you're just not going to find too many newer, if any, than some of the early part of the 1900s. But we're still kind of at the back, looking back towards the front. That's going to come into focus a little bit there. Here is another. You may want to pause that and read it. This is another historical marker. And this Benjamin Bridges was actually a part of the American Revolution as well. So it's another hero of the Revolution. Seen several of those in here. Now this I thought was neat. This was another structure kind of built, but you go in here and you look over top of these stones, and you'll see there's several burials in this little plot. I just think it's neat how the plot is kind of built up. But Thomas Sturgeon, once again, we have another veteran of the American Revolution. He passed in 1849. Born 1762, so again, just another example of the age that you're going to find in this cemetery. One of my viewers, I mentioned there earlier in my intro, one of my viewers, or if I didn't mention, I meant to, one of my viewers actually recommended this after I paid a visit to the cemetery that had Abraham Lincoln's uncle in it, which was, kind of a surprise find. So whoever that was, I greatly appreciate you giving me the suggestion. I love getting suggestions on my channel. I found some great places just through the suggestions of my viewers. So thank you for that. If you have any suggestions in this area, if you're from this area, leave me a comment below. Let me know of what I can, of where I can visit. I'm all the time chasing new places and history to tell. I do want to take a moment here. Samuel Cohn, another veteran of the American Revolution. So there were several. I didn't really count. I don't know how many there were, but I would say 4 or 5 anyway, American Revolution soldiers in here. I thought this stone was neat. There was a lot of neat architecture that you could find. Unfortunately, weather and age has kind of reclaimed a lot of these, so you didn't really see as much architecture in here simply because of the age. I mean, it was, like I said, it's an old place. You can see right there. I mean, that tombstone's broken in half, and someone just kind of leaned it back. But just taking a look at some of the names in here, you can see the flowers and things that are carved into the, or chiseled, I guess, into the stone. So that's very, very neat. John Thomas Kahn. We've seen a lot of Kahns in here too. And that was one thing that was a suggestion from some of my viewers on these country cemetery tours, to try to get a better look at the names. The problem I run into on that is the age on some of the stones. It's just hard to see some of the names, but I'm trying to get there a little more. Another marker there. And the markers weren't just to show people and burials, they are also to show just historical landmarks and things like that you may find of interest. I thought this was very interesting. Warfield Young, 1815 to 1865. This was the great uncle of Harry Truman. So another historical figure that has ties to this cemetery. So we have 2 different U.S. presidents that have relatives in here, Harry Truman and of course Abraham Lincoln. So I thought this was very neat. Warfield Young, just a very simple stone, but relative of Harry Truman. So I thought that was a very neat find. I love finding this type of history, especially the unexpected. I mean, you just never know what you're going to find. In all these cemeteries, whether there's anyone famous in here or ties to anyone with fame, they all carry history. And to me, one of the best history books you can read is going right here to a cemetery. Now we're up towards, if you're facing the back from the front, this is up towards the left side, and we're making our way kind of back to the front gate. But you'll see here again, these little plots that have families in them. So we're looking at those. I'm going to kind of pan around here and take a look. A lot of simple stones. I mean, there wasn't anything too elaborate in here, but that just reflects the area. I mean, I know this wasn't what you would call a very wealthy area. There's another one you can see that's broken. It's just been kind of leaned back up. But yeah, this was very, very historical. I just really appreciated the history in this. You can see Martha V there, and I believe that says Mary Jane, it looks like. So those are I think those were wives of the same person. So obviously one wife had passed and he had remarried, so they were put together. But you can see, I was commenting on this. You can see that stone right there. That was probably an expensive stone, especially for this area and for this day. And there it was, just kind of fell over. I mean, things just, they just don't last forever. I thought this was neat with the finger pointing up. I'm not sure what that is a representation of. Maybe you do. Let me know in the comments if you do. But yeah, Long Run Baptist Church. It was so neat to be able to see everything here. The cemetery, the site of the former church, and also the site of Abraham Lincoln's father's cabin. And this area, I mean, it's like the if you're ever here, go read that plaque out of the front of the cemetery, because it says you're visiting historical grounds. You are. I mean, there's a lot of tragedy that happened here. I mean, like I said, the skirmish that ended Lincoln's grandfather's life happened right here, and from stories, his father witnessed all that. So yeah, just a very historical place, and historical enough that it's on the National Register of Historic Places. So if you're ever in the area, I would suggest looking it up. If you're from the area, I should go pay it a visit. I would love to know what you think about this particular visit, so let me know in the comments. I wanted to go ahead and record this too. I love the fencing, or the gate, whatever you want to call it. You can just see the age and the history and all that. And of course, there's like a couple burials on the inside, but I mean, those, you just don't see that anymore. Not anything new. So again, another part of history there, just the way this particular grave is designed with the gate and all that. So, you know, I wanted to show that, so I thought that would be neat for you all to see. I love bringing you these country cemetery tours. It has been a joy to be able to do this, and I love it because I'm seeing things I've never seen before. It's really not all that far from me. It gets me researching and exploring and out. This was a gorgeous day to be out. So I want to take another look here. We're back towards the front, and I'm just kind of panning around to show you in its entirety what the cemetery looks like. I'm getting ready to, yeah, you can see there, that's very, I mean, it's picturesque. And I'm glad to be able to make this visit. I'm going to show you, I told you there was an announcement coming up. I'm going to make that in just a moment. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please click subscribe. Join me on my journeys. We've had a lot of growth here. Like I said, we've reached over 8,500 subscribers, on our way to 9,000, and I hope that's just a brief stop on the way to 10,000. Please like and subscribe, comment, leave me a comment below. I love to read the comments. I love to hear from you. I've had several people ask how they could help the channel. I never want to ask for anything without giving something in return. Have had people ask me if I was ever going to have merchandise like t-shirts and such. Well, here we are. I am launching the Whit Docs apparel store, mostly t-shirts and things like that on there, long sleeve shirts, hoodies, that kind of stuff. If it's something, if you want to support the channel, support my journeys, I'm going to put a link in the description of where you can go to look at some of this stuff. And I would love to have my t-shirts and my logo out there in the public. And I also want to do some things in the future where maybe I give some of this stuff away, because I want to, I like doing that kind of stuff. So again, I want to thank you all for watching. I greatly appreciate it. I'm going to put all the links in the description below. I will see you again soon.